Thank you.
And for a little marketing sake later for this lovely late night secrets for voiceover success. And I named it because thank you for staying up late. I did this because a lot of you guys have kids and now the kids are in bed. You can have a drink, you can relax, you can absorb some information. And a lot of times we stay on here for a little extra time and just chitty chat when we're all done. So this month, as we talked about just a little while ago, is medical narration, dissecting the genre in the state of COVID-19 because things have moved and changed. I want to talk about next month here really quickly. We have Larry Hudson coming on the end of next month, the last Wednesday of next month, and he's going to be talking all things audio. So if no matter what you use, if you use the top three, Audacity, Twisted Wave, or Adobe Audition, he's going to be going over tips and tricks to set up shortcuts, different ways to help your sound in your booth. So if you need a little bit of help on the editing end of things, next month would be the time to do that. And the following months, I have, Larry Hudson is with VO Heaven, if you want to look him up, voheaven.com. And then Dan Friedman with Sound for VO is going to be on the following month, and he is a sound engineer guru extraordinaire. So if you want to learn a little bit about improving your booth and your sound, that would be a good month for that. But tonight, with no further ado, let's introduce, I've been working on my accent. Was it pretty good?
That was, it was perfect.
On one word.
Merveilleux.
Yeah, I don't know. I say eh. That's all I know about accents. So Debbie Irwin is a medical professional in the voiceover world. She has 20 years of experience in the voiceover business. She's lent her voice to almost every type of voiceover need. She has been the voice of the Statue of Liberty, voices for things like Cersei Lannister types, you know, the British queen from the Game of Thrones. Sometimes she's that annoying interactive voice. I think a lot of us are that annoying interactive voice where people are screaming, "Let me talk to a human." Yeah. Debbie's experience as a female voiceover talent spans from narrating documentaries and video games, commercials, corporate e-learning audio, IVR, telephony, and so she's kind of done the gamut of things. Now, she is an expert in the medical voiceover world, and it's a specialized niche that she does. So she works a lot in the medical world, and she has a high level of skill and proficiency. And she works with global pharmaceutical companies and boutique medical animation firms, academic teaching hospitals, and major universities to deliver just the right balance of intelligent authority, warmth, and clarity to all of her projects. And I'm so interested to learn what your background is. I mean, truthfully, I know you have a presentation for us tonight, but just your background and how you got started in not only voiceover, but how did you figure out you were a medical narrator kind of person?
Well, thank you, Rhonda. It's thrilling to be here, and there are so many of you in the house. So, thank you all for showing up. I've been on the other side of the glass, as it were, enjoying many of your speakers. And shout out to Larry Hudson. Also, he's fantastic. He's a terrific teacher, and I learned how to use Adobe Audition thanks to him. I have a very varied background. I mean, I would like to say that I kind of started as an actress when I was in diapers, making my family laugh. And from there, you know, did a lot in the theater growing up. And ultimately came to New York to pursue that dream of being a stage actress as a, you know, young 20-something. So that was what I did by day. By night, I was bartending in a disco because I love to dance. And after a couple of years of that, I was ready for a real job that paid real money. So I went to work at the Guggenheim Museum, where I worked for a few years doing PR and special events. And very soon I realized that I wanted a real job that paid real money. So I went to Wall Street. I became a stockbroker, and I had a very successful career there until I left Wall Street for Sesame Street when I started having babies, and I became a full-time mom. And I raised 3 kids who are about to be 30, 28, and 25. Somewhere along the line, I realized that I wanted to get back to something for me, and I really struggled to figure out what that was. I did a lot of looking at different courses. What could I possibly do? I still had kids at home, you know, so it had to be something that I felt passionately about. And I found a class for voiceover. And I was immediately intrigued, And within 5 minutes of being in the class, having a script in my hand and standing up and reading, I knew I had found it. So I like to say that the wheel has come full circle from when I came to New York, although now, of course, it's at a higher plane, and I'm living the dream that I came for. I just didn't know it was going to look like this. So I feel very, very lucky. Anyway, just to get started, to give you guys a sense of where I'd like to go tonight, and again, apologies for the technical problems that I had at the start. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the state of the state, right, of, VO right now, and then also, the world of healthcare right now. And then we'll get into dissecting the medical genre and talking about different kinds of medical narration, figuring out whether or not you might be a good fit, where the buyers are. And then we'll have some playtime. We'll do some tongue twisters and some tough words. And I have some online resources also at the end to share with you. And Q&A. So as you go along, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and Rhonda will maybe interrupt me at some point, or we'll wait till the end. We'll just kind of see how we go with the time. So obviously, first of all, there was news today, and news that the FDA is going to approve COVID-19 treatment, remdesivir, which has shown some positive outcomes for shortening the amount of time to recovery. It's a small study, and it's not conclusive, but they're going to approve it. And, I think that's good news. So we can all feel a little bit excited about that. The VO landscape is very, very different now. Before, you could audition from home. Many people did audition from home, but not everybody produced their audio from home. I have always done about 80% of my work from my own studio. Now, of course, it's 100%. And, I think there's really an interesting new paradigm, because I think that there are now opportunities for all of the talent in between New York and LA, and there are a ton of really super talented people who would never be considered for projects before if they were since they weren't in New York or LA. Can't even really speak to LA, I can speak to the New York market because that's where I've been. But for many projects, you had to audition in person, and you had to go to a studio to have the session, which frankly is a luxury. It's nice to only have to be the talent and not be the studio engineer and the director and take session notes and whatnot. So I think that's a real plus for a lot of people, because now it's really opened up, and it really does not matter where you are, but it does matter how good you are and what your setup is. In fact, agents lately have been asking, whereas before they never asked. They didn't know, they didn't care, so it seemed. What's your home studio like, right? What's your gear? And now they want to know, not only do you have Source Connect, right? First it was, do you have it? And then yes. Then a week later, they came back with a more specific question. Do you know how to use it? On a scale of 0 to 5, 0 being, yeah, I bought it last week, I've tested it, but I haven't really used it, to 5, yes, I've been using it for years, right? And the latest question that we've gotten, or I've gotten anyhow, is, are you hardwired or are you on Wi-Fi? So these are things that are super important, no matter where you are now, because, as is true in so many different ways, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So clearly there were some things that went poorly, I would say. Otherwise, the agents wouldn't be coming back saying, oh no, now we have to make sure that the standard is up to here, not just that you have Source Connect, not just that you can connect, right? What's the quality of your sound? Anyhow, there's not a business on the face of the earth that hasn't been touched by COVID-19. But I do think that we are so lucky because most of us, work from home anyway. And, that isn't changing for us. And so for myself, when I'm in this booth, I feel like everything's normal, and I step out and then I remember that the world is upside down. And I think that there will be ways in which our industry is going to shift more. I'd be interested to hear from many of you what you're experiencing. But some things that I think we will see are that budgets are likely going to shrink. There's going to be a greater reliance on stock images, at least for the near term, because video production crews aren't going out and shooting. And there'll be a greater reliance on audio just in general, because it can be produced remotely without any risk to people's health. So all of that, I think, is really good news for us. I'm going to share my screen now. Share. And then start here. Can everybody see it? Well, actually it's starting the slideshow, but if you can see it, if you could give me a thumbs up, and I'll give the thumbs up when I see it too, because I don't see it yet.
Yeah, it just says starting slideshow, and there it is. Everybody
Okay.
got it? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Awesome.
We're good. Perfect. Let's get going.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Okay, terrific. So here we are, medical narration in the time of COVID-19. Big expenditures across the board in healthcare, always, no surprise there. In 2018, $1 trillion was spent by individuals on healthcare costs. Over $3 trillion was spent by our government for Medicare, Medicaid research, and so on. 2019, those numbers crept up significantly. And here we are in 2020, and obviously we don't have those estimates yet, but already we know that where COVID-19 costs are concerned, it's already estimated to be around $1 trillion, which is mind-boggling. So there's a lot of money that's being spent, and obviously not all of this is being spent in ways that are going to affect us as voice talent. But medical marketing has also had huge budgets. In 2018, $30 billion was spent. In 2019, that increased by 20% to $36 billion. Obviously, the question now is, are we going to see more money spent? Are we going to see contraction of budgets? And frankly, if you read the press, you kind of hear that people are saying all of the above. Certainly in the 2008 recession, we have the facts that advertising media spending dropped by 13%. But the shift now that we're seeing is a shift to digital. And so many pharma and healthcare marketing companies are focusing in that direction as opposed to, producing new content like, for TV, let's say. The agencies have this contingency scenario, which frankly, I think it's probably true for all of us. It's like your plan A, okay, if things all go as planned. Your plan B, which is, okay, what could be the impact of COVID-19 on my plan? And then plan C, which is, who the hell knows? And I tend to ascribe to the plan C at this point because I think there are still so many unanswered questions. Nonetheless, there's been an uptick in demand for content in China that's shared via WeChat, and in the States and Europe for website content, emails, and banners. So that's already taking hold. This is an interesting survey that was done recently. They asked different healthcare companies, over 500 of them, what do you expect to be the impact of COVID-19 on your business? And the digital health companies were really the only ones who said, who had a majority of them who felt that it was going to have a positive impact. Pharmaceutical companies were kind of even across the board. 30% said they thought it could be positive, 30% thought negative, another 30%, 33% said they didn't know. Right? Accelerator and VC, those are VC companies, venture capital companies. So that's where, new money is coming in to fund new ideas. And, there's concern there. I think the largest number is that they're concerned that it's going to have a negative impact. Certainly the insurance companies are going to feel it badly. And then most of all, you see on the bottom, the hospitals and healthcare providers, 67% of whom say that it's going to have a negative impact. I mean, maybe this is stating the obvious, but I do think that the most interesting thing on this survey is the digital health companies. And I think that's, the place for us to focus on. So let's get into the different kinds of medical narration. I'm going to move this. Whoopsie. Come back, little Sheba. Come back. Come back. Come back. I was just trying to move. This is what I wanted to move out of the way. Yes, thank you. Okay. So lots of different kinds of medical narration. And to my way of thinking, it's macro and micro. It's big, huge, long, impossible projects down to 15-second PSAs. There are your medical, surgical, cellular videos. There are MODs, and some of the terms, some of the acronyms I'm going to use are really important for you to know. And they're important, as I mentioned, I'll mention why later on, but it's important to know them. So an MOD is a mechanism of disease, and those animations show how a disease functions in the body. Alternatively, you have your MOAs, and that shows how a drug works on the disease in the body. And oftentimes, for regulatory reasons, they can't be combined. They have to be separated. You can't be selling a drug while you're talking about the science and the facts around a disease. There's student education, patient education, an awful lot of that going on now, right? What to expect videos and aftercare videos. So if you're going in for surgery, oftentimes there's content that you could be narrating that will explain what the procedure is going to be like, how many doctor's visits you're going to go through, what to bring to the hospital. And then, of course, the aftercare videos, which are for patients and they're for caregivers, all different kinds of people. They could be for parents because maybe it's their kids who are having a surgery. CME, doctors have to continue to maintain their, credits, and I don't know if it's every year, every couple of years, whatever it is, they have to continue to learn. And a lot of that content is voiced by people like us. The HCPs, the healthcare professionals, a lot of education out there for them, and HR and health benefits. So those health benefits, that's content that's produced by all companies, not just a healthcare company. Coca-Cola has a huge H&R department, and that content, which I consider to be still medical narration, falls under that category. You've got your medical device training videos, in-office videos. Maybe some of you have been in an office and you've seen, it's like a way to pass the time, or a doctor will be explaining what the surgery is that, you're about to have, or, possible procedure. There are games, there's apps, VR, award ceremonies. Many of these associations and health systems have award ceremonies. They're benefits to raise money, and so they'll do an anthemic video highlighting a certain physician or certain patients, and these are also what I consider to be medical narration and great opportunities. Funding pitches. I did a narration for Johns Hopkins University when they were pitching an idea. They were trying to get funding for an idea on some cancer research. And I narrated that. They spent, a good amount of money creating this beautiful animation showing what the problems were. And in fact, they won a $50 million grant. So I was happy about that for them. And the ISI, important safety information, which you hear at the end of some commercials that are advertising certain drugs. That's the information where they basically say all the different ways in which the drug can kill you, and you have to make it sound like it's not that bad. And sometimes that ISI also appears at the end of videos that companies are producing, talking about a drug, but it's content that's going out to physicians, and it's boring and nobody listens to it. But legally, they have to have it there. So somebody has to read that. This is just another way of seeing all the different opportunities that exist, in the world of medical narration. The bigger green circles here, show the largest volume of content that's created. So let's get into a little bit of nitty-gritty about you guys, right? The who, the what, the where, is this right for me? So the first question is, who is a good fit? Now you have to be honest with yourself about your sound, right? If you're just starting out, maybe you don't even know what your sound is. And that takes time, and you learn it by getting feedback from other people. And those other people could be coaches. Those other people could be casting directors. They could be agents. They could be clients who've already hired you or are considering hiring you. And you can ask them, what was it about my voice that you found interesting, that made you think that I would be right for this job? That's invaluable information so that you can learn how it is that other people are perceiving you. So you may have an idea of how you're presenting yourself to the world, but truly, that's not what really counts. What's really important is to know how you are perceived. I have a friend who's in her 60s, and she sounds like she's 12. And so the work that she gets is animation work, but she wanted to do commercial work. She wanted to do other work, as an adult. But she's never going to book that because that's not what her voice is. That's not what she sounds like. And while there may be a place for, that kid's voice, certainly in the context of maybe a medical animation that's directed towards kids, or if it's, real people and you have a kid voicing something, but, she isn't going to be hired to be the voice of a doctor when they need someone who sounds like they're older, experienced, that they've got gravitas, intelligence, that they know what's happening, etc. I think that's kind of obvious, but nonetheless, you do need to be honest, because you may have this fantasy. Like, for instance, let's say you want to do animation, but but you don't really have the tools in your toolbox yet. You don't really have any characters. And when you get hired for some of those jobs, you have to bring 3 characters to the table. Otherwise, that's like part of the contract, I think, the union contract or whatever. Unique skill sets. Each different genre does have unique skill sets, for whether it's long form or IVR. Certainly in medical narration, you have the 15-second spots, and you also have the hour and a half long e-learning modules. I did one recently that was a bear. It was one of the hardest ones I've ever done, and it was for oncology pharmacists. And in this, in this area, articulation, enunciation, pronunciation, all of these things are super important. And in terms of the articulation and enunciation, well, even with the pronunciation, not that you have to, on the pronunciation, not that you have to know how to pronounce the word at the get-go, but you have to be able to hear if you're doing it right once you have a sample of how it's supposed to sound. And with the articulation and enunciation, it's really important to, again, be able to hear whether or not you're speaking clearly. I remember many years ago when I started out, and it was David Goldberg from Edge Studio. I had sent him my demo, and he called me and said, he left a message saying, "I'd be happy to talk to you and, you know, point out some things about your demo where, um, like mispronunciations, something like that." And I thought, what's he thinking? English is my first language. But he pointed out to me all these little ways in which I wasn't articulating perfectly or slurring a certain word or combining a couple of sounds together. So the point behind this, I think, is that your ear is a muscle and it takes time to develop any muscle, but in particular this one. So when you're starting out, it's hard to hear all these things. The more advanced you get, the more detail you will hear. And it's true with your eyes and all your senses. The more you study a painting, for instance, the more detail you'll see in it, the more you'll come to appreciate, the more nuance you'll find in it. So that's on the unique skill set side. Do you like challenging text? Well, there are lots of complicated words. There are complicated thought chunks, which are tough to kind of almost like a Gordian knot, and you have to kind of untie it and figure out, all right, what is this four-line sentence really trying to say, and which of these phrases is referring back to which. So you try and figure that out on your own, and then ultimately, if you need help, you go back to the client to say, really, this is not clear to me. Can you help me understand this? Also, you're often a slave to the words on the page because the texts have gone through MLR, which is medical legal review, and you can't change a word. You can't make a conjunction out of two words. You can't skip an A. The T's are crossed, the Di's are odded, the Di's are odded, the I's are dotted, and there's no room for flexibility there. So it's really important that you're a solid reader, and oftentimes even a solid cold reader, because you might be getting some of this text right before a session. Do you like long form text? Years ago when I started out, I did do some audiobooks, and that was fun and fine then. Now I have no interest in that. That's way too long for my interest. But many of the projects are long, and long being, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. Do you like that? Do you have the stamina for that? Can you be consistent from start to finish with your tone, with your tempo, with your attitude, with your energy? And are you cool with voicing numbers and percentages and greater than or equal to and, content in parentheses? Because there's a lot of that, especially in the ISI, in the important safety information. And there's, it's hard to find a story there. It's hard to find, ways of being really engaging. And it can be very difficult to read that stuff because it's just so, it's like of numbers and data and research statistics. So that's also a part of it. And then, are you ready? Are you trained? Are you a working voice talent already? Are you comfortable at the mic? Are you comfortable in a session and being directed? Are you comfortable having a conversation with the client about the script and any questions that you might have about the script? So all of these things are good questions to ask yourself. So what are clients seeking? Everybody likes someone who has experience. They want to know that this isn't your first rodeo, that you know how to take direction, that you can hear what you're doing so that if they're asking you to do 3 in a row, those 3 in a row that you're giving them are 3 different things in a row. And that gets back to your ears again, of being able to not only hear and understand what's being asked of you, but can you digest that and give it back in such a way that you really have given them variety? Because sometimes we may think that we're doing that, but in fact we're not. And there too, it's where you want to really train and develop your ear and get honest feedback, input from people so that you know where you stand, so that you can get better, because that's the goal, right? Always to be better. Ask smart questions. Now, any question is a good question, but any question that you can answer on your own with a quick little Google search, I wouldn't consider to be a smart question. A smart question is something where, you've combed through the text and maybe you see something that doesn't quite make sense to you, and you ask them to clarify that point. And maybe they realize that, oh, it needs to be clearer. Or maybe you see an inconsistency in the text. And I'm not suggesting that, you go out and try and correct their, grammar or anything like that. Because again, these scripts, 9 times out of 10, have gone through MLR, and you can't change anything about them. Nonetheless, there have been times where I've asked questions and they'll be like, that's a good question. And I love hearing that, because it tells me that they see the work that I've put in even before I've come to the session, and that I care about the script because I've really gotten to know the script, and I've found some, details in it that needed clarification. Are you prepared when you show up? Have you rehearsed the script? Are you familiar with the tough words that need to then just roll off your tongue? Do you have questions for them? Do you know how the session's going to be run? Are you comfortable with making a suggestion for how to run the session? Whether you're doing a read top to bottom, whether you're doing it in, separate chunks, who's going to take the session notes, right? Because now we have to think about all of these things. And it's not to say that you have to do these things, because I don't like doing all of those things. So when I start a session, I'll say, who would like to take the session notes? Because it's too much for me, to to do everything else. So that way too, nobody minds. They're used to doing that, and they feel like it's a partnership that way. So everybody is doing their bit in that session. The lingo, the lexicon, this is what I was talking about earlier with being familiar with the MODs and the MOAs and the ISIs, etc. Do you know the language? Are you familiar with what these terms are? And are you familiar with the process from concept to MLR? So, how does one of these medical animations, get started? It starts with a product. It starts with a writer, and then the writer then goes to the artist, and they draw up a storyboard. And even before that, there's usually a creative consultation. Who's the audience that we're trying to reach, and what's the mood that we're trying to create in this piece. So then they'll perhaps want a scratch track, then it'll go to an animatic, and then finally that all gets rendered and into the final animation. They want someone who is facile with tongue-twisting terminology. They may see these words, they may write these words. It doesn't mean that they feel comfortable saying these words. They can be tricky sometimes. And even on the pronunciation, I've been in many sessions where people from the same company disagree on how you pronounce the product. So there you simply say, no problem, we'll just record it every which way you want, and then, at your leisure, you can figure it out or duke it out and decide which one you want to go with. And are you a problem solver? So I think that, music is a really, really important part of what we do. As a voice talent, I love to hear what the music is first, because that inspires me. It tells me more about the mood. In addition to whatever visuals they send, I ask for, if any music has been selected, or even if they have some ideas about the kind of music. But conversely, if they're going to work with a composer, and there are times when I'm hired to maybe be the talent and also handle the whole audio package, or handle the audio package and hire other talent because, let's say, they want a male voice or they need multiple voices. So in a situation like that, the composer likes to know who the voice is, because the voice is an instrument and they factor that into their compositions. In fact, I did a project once where I was the voice until partway through. They decided that they wanted a male voice, and the composer had already been composing to my voice. So he didn't throw it all out, but he certainly had to make a lot of changes. Localization. Localization is converting something into another language. So it's a great thing if you can ask your client, is this going to be, converted into Spanish or Russian or Chinese? If so, that's important to know early on, because that's going to have an effect on how long their animation could be. Because if it's English, let's say it's a minute. If it's Spanish, it'll be a minute and 20 seconds. So it's really, that's valuable information for that they may be thinking about or may not be thinking about. So if you bring it up, it shows that you're, you're part of the team and thinking about, yes, today, but also tomorrow and what may be coming down the road. Where are the buyers? I won't read the list. I think you can all, see them. They're in lots of places, some more obvious than others. You might think a museum wouldn't be a buyer, but the museum, the National Library of Medicine, is a museum that I, did an audio tour for. Your startups, maybe there are going to be fewer startups because of the VC funding maybe being less than it had been, but all of these places, are producing content that we are voicing. So how do you find them? Well, through people that you know and through people that you don't. Now, I realize that sounds a little simplistic. What I mean by that is through people that you know, clients, let's say, that you already have, or friends or family if you're really starting out. Do you know a nurse? Do you know a doctor? Do you know someone who works, at a pharmaceutical company? Do you know a writer? Have conversations with these people and start to get to know what their world is all about, because by finding out more about their world, you'll come to realize that there are places and organizations that you never had any idea existed, and those are places that you can go to where your competition isn't, right? So that's, that it's sort of like the concept of the best way to find a client is in your own clients, in terms of, sort of shaking, just getting back in touch with people, right, that you might not have been in touch with before. They've already worked with you, they already like you. So, continuing conversations with these people is a positive thing to do. And then in terms of people that you don't know, well, this is where we get into, doing our research and going down the rabbit hole. Just don't forget to come on back out, everybody. So read the news. Did you know, just in the last couple of days, I saw that an Italian hospital is using VR headsets to help clinicians decrease their stress levels. This is probably in the way. And they get teleported to a place and a period in their life when they were happy, which is such a beautiful thing. The National Law Review, and you might think, National Law Review, I would never think to find anything medical related there, but they spoke about GE Healthcare, who makes a lot of medical devices, seeking a waiver of FCC marketing rules. And in fact, I think that probably also applies to the drug that is also getting pushed through rather quickly, I think, from the FDA. I think a lot of rules are being softened a little bit to help things move through the pipeline faster. So I didn't contact GE Healthcare. I have done work for them, but not directly. Who I contacted with this article was a studio that I've done work with on behalf of GE Healthcare, just as a way of saying, hey, I saw this, FYI, how are you doing? And, left it at that. Merck. Oof, predicting a $3.1 billion hit from COVID-19. I mean, that's significant. That's going to have ripple effects in ways, we can't even really imagine. But, there are also silver linings in all of this. So I'm, optimistic. And in fact, some of the silver lining for that, for instance, is seeing, work shifting to, we're teleporting, and now everything is becoming more virtual. Set Google alerts for search terms that are relevant to your interests or the titles of the people who are doing the work. That way, you're getting information every day into your inbox, and you can choose to explore that. You can find the name of a company, and you can be like, or if somebody won an award, you can get in touch with them and say, I noticed that, you did such and such, and congratulations. Just as a way of reaching out and developing new relationships. Brochures. None of us are going into doctor's offices right now, hopefully not. But I used to pick up brochures and, they would have information about, the drug company or certain procedures or, there's just so much information there, and also content that you can use to practice with. Medical magazines also, lots of information there that you can source and just be creative with. So you want to be researching these associations, connect with the alumni from your alma mater. You can connect with people on LinkedIn using some of those same search terms, and also find people and organizations to follow on Twitter. So these are things that you've already heard, but what underscores with all of these things is that it just doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to build these relationships. In fact, there's a guy who I'm in touch with now who told me that he has some work that he thinks he'd like me to do for him. He and I first connected in 2014. That's 6 years ago. Now, I have not been emailing him every month, believe me. We've had sporadic contact with each other. But in the last 4 months or so, we had a phone conversation, and we really connected. We found a lot of things that we had in common. And, I firmly believe that's going to turn into some work for me. And he's a big guy in the industry, and I'll be super excited to work with him. So, again, that's 6 years, not to be discouraging, but it's you don't become an overnight success, right? It takes 20 years to become an overnight success. When do they call you, or should they? Ideally, as early as possible, but certainly once the script is written, you can offer to send a scratch track. Everybody needs a scratch track. They're usually doing it in their office, but if they have one from you, then they're already getting to hear your voice. And when I send a scratch track, I'm not sending just a whatever they do. I'm making sure it's the best audio that I can send, because anything that comes out of my studio is a reflection of me. So I want to be sure that it's top quality. The scratch track will enhance the animatic phase. And, are they contacting you before or after there's music? These are some of the questions that, we already discussed. So why pursue this path? It's hard, but if it's a good fit, it's rewarding. There's good volume and consistency of work. There are or were healthier budgets. That remains to be seen if it's still the case. For the love of the science and art, some of these animations I find to be really fine works of art. And to me, it's thrilling to be a part of the creative that's putting these together. The creatives that you're working with are also very passionate, and that's an exciting room to be in. It's a niche genre for a reason, because it's not easy. It's not right for everybody. So there is less competition, although after tonight, I don't know, maybe there's going to be a whole lot more. And again, just to drive home that point, is it a good fit? So now we get to play. I think let's see, I guess I have to leave my screen on, but can we get some people to voice some of these? Or should I just do like a copy and paste into the chat room?
Well, Debbie, why don't we
Pause here.
let's do a couple of questions. There's been a ton of questions thrown out there.
Okay.
So Sarah and I are just going to go through them really quickly. I know you may not be able to answer some of these quickly, but I think if we get a few of these things out of the way, we can get into having some fun.
One of the questions is, what are some qualities of a really good medical narration demo? You know, like killer, like, wow, this person knows what she's talking about, or he.
The audio quality needs to be top shelf. The ability to tell a story. It's really, I think it's the same thing for almost any demo, right? You don't want to notice the audio quality. If you do, that's it. You know, it's you're like out of the game, okay? And you want diversity in there. Yes, you have to show off your chops that you can pronounce difficult words, but I like to have a range of things in there. Some technical, some, you know, hospital spots. Some maybe e-learning for, you know, I did a bunch of e-learning for Memorial Sloan Kettering. So I think having, you know, diversity, having some really strong, having your wheelhouse sound at the top and at the back end, and having it be like any other demo, you know, interesting to listen to. And the clips can be longer than for a commercial demo because this content is longer. And they want to be sure that, in fact, I have two versions. I have a 60-second and I have a 2-minute one. So depending on the person that I'm sending it to, I'll share one or both.
Folks are wondering, can they get a copy of your presentation? So if you want to make that available, I can always send it out in a newsletter at some point in time.
I'll think about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
If it's available, great. If not, I hope everybody took some really good notes. Okay, so how much of your medical narration work do you do on your own versus in directed sessions, asks Jennifer.
Well, Jennifer, I would say 80% of it I do myself, and 20% is directed, or sometimes they'll sit in for the first part and then leave. Yes. It depends on the client, you know. Sometimes they like to be there, and I'm absolutely fine with that. That 90-minute e-learning project I did, no, I did that on my own. It was such a bear. It was so hard. But I'm really glad that no one was on the phone with me because, well, it was a complicated project to begin with. But anyway.
Debbie, I think all of us are really keen to know where you go for your pronunciations of some of the drugs and some of the stuff. Where do you go? Do you look for when the doctor tells you what you're saying, or, you know, like nephropathy? That's a really hard one to say. It's
I have a list of places, and I'll copy that and put that into the chat. That's at the back end of the presentation. There are tons of places, but honestly, I only use a few. I think the best one is Webster's Medical Dictionary. And if you just put a word into the Google search and then, you know, then pronunciation, you're going to get lots of different options, like this Emma says, or, you know, the one with the right swirly thing. Be careful, you guys, be careful, because that isn't always right. In fact, it's often wrong. So I'll triangulate. I'll listen to a few different things to find out how to pronounce something. Although if it's coming from Webster's, then, you know, then I trust it implicitly. Here's an interesting point, though, asking a question as to who your audience is, because if your audience is British, the pronunciation of certain words is going to be different. So that's something to bear in mind.
Yes, paracetamol and paracetamol are very different.
Well, there you go. Right. You're proving my point. And the other thing that you shouldn't be shy about doing is calling the company to ask, you know, just the 1-800 number. I say, hi, I have a funny question for you. Can you tell me how you pronounce your product, blah, blah, blah? And they'll be like, yeah, you say it, blah, blah, blah. And then if you're still uncertain, like if I'm asking questions in advance to my client, I like to gather them all together so that they're neat and organized, and instead of just, firing one at a time. Sometimes they'll send them along to their client and then I'll get the answer. Other times they'll say, we'll address this in the session. So that's the first thing I go to, because it's, you want to be prepared. You don't want any surprises. So, that's part of the homework of, finding out how to say these things so that you're not stumbling like I am right now in the session. You want to really have those words down, because, there's more pressure when, when people are listening to you. And you need to sound like you know what you're talking about. You need to sound like you say these words all the time. They just roll off your tongue.
I think
like
the
butter.
clients understand. I think the clients understand that, though, Debbie. I had a recent medical narration where they kept popped on for the first half hour, got my tone, got the way they wanted it to be, and then they said, "We'll let you do what you do." That's what they said. And I was like, "Thank you."
Right.
Nephropathy, it can be, pronounced different ways. So it's really hard when they're in your ear, and you get anxious about it when you hear it. It's just not. It doesn't produce a good sound. It doesn't produce a good recording if they're listening. It really doesn't, and they acknowledge that. So that was.
So Debbie, can you say, a lot of this is very technical stuff, but a lot of it is just really commercial voiceover stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to their e-learning, corporate, B2B, all these things come into play. So can you call yourself a medical narrator if you're just doing the commercial portion, or are you expected to know the terminology and to be able to do all of those things?
I don't know that there's any expectation. It depends on who your clients are, right? And where you're marketing yourself. If you're marketing yourself to, well, I was going to say the pharma companies, but it depends, who you're marketing yourself to. I don't, if your agents are sending you spots to do for, Blue Cross Blue Shield or this health plan or that hospital, I don't know that I would necessarily, if that's all I was doing, call myself a medical narrator, because that's so just a tiny portion of the world of medical narration. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so I guess my point is it's really important to get your coaching and training in all of the areas so you're comfortable being able to bring a script to life, just like we all do, and all the other kinds of things.
Absolutely. It's, and some of this content is harder to do than others. And, if it's a commercial, you kind of know instinctively that it's going to be warm and caring and have a certain authority to it, but not a heavy authority, a certain, we know what we're talking about and you can trust us. Right. So coaching for all of this is so critical. Depends on what it is that you want to do. Right. So, if I was going to say, if you're not interested in animation, you don't need to do improv, but improv is helpful for anybody always, I think, especially if you're in a session and you're feeling uncomfortable and you have to kind of let it roll off and just roll, go with the punches. But, I can't stress enough how important it is to have the training and to be ready, because you only get one chance to make that first impression, and if you're not ready, then you're really shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, I did that. I made that mistake early on in my career. Through a friend, I got a meeting with an agent at Buchwald, which is one of the biggest in New York City, and I was so not ready. Yeah, I had a demo, but she could see right through me in a nanosecond, the agent, and she never, even though I tried, I stayed in touch. I took some classes with her over the years. I know I got better. She could never see me beyond that newbie that she met however many years prior. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. In a pickup for long form project, This is a question from Brad's VO. Do you cut the pickup into the existing voiceover module file or record it separately? And any tips on matching tone when you have to go back and do pickups?
How do I do it? I do it a couple of different ways. Sometimes I have both of my software programs open. I use Twisted Wave and I use Adobe Audition. And I absolutely have to know what it's going into. And sometimes I'll record it in there, sometimes I won't. I'll record it separately and I'll put it in, and I have to hear how it sounds. Sometimes I have to extend what it is that I'm recording on either side to make it flow better. But there too, it's where your ear needs to be trained. You need to be able to hear, is this seamless? And sometimes what I'll do is I'll close my eyes and I'll listen to an edit that I've done, whether it's a pickup or what have you. And usually it's a pickup if it's an edit. And closing my eyes helps me to hear it, or I'll turn away from the screen because I know where it is. And I'll be like, am I noticing it? Because I don't want to notice it. If I don't notice it, then it's good.
That's a really good one. Really good one. Somebody asked about your Google alerts. Do you set up Google alerts for specific keywords and things like that, medical terms? That's Miss Gaffney asking.
Yes is the simple answer. Yes, I do. And a lot of content comes my way, and a lot of it I delete because I just don't have the time to consume it. But, if you're starting out and you do have time and you're trying to build a business, these are resources. Nobody's going to hand you on a silver platter, clients. It just doesn't happen that way. When I was a stockbroker, nobody handed me clients. I had to cold call every day. We would make 100 dials and 10 people would answer the phone. And of those 10, one person said, okay, you can send me the brochure. And then you'd have to, send it out and wait for it to get there. And then you'd have to call them back, and maybe they'd be there, maybe they wouldn't, maybe they'd want to take your call, maybe not. It took a long time to build that business. So, where people have this fallacy that, oh, voiceover, it's so easy, all I do is talk. All you do is talk. I've been talking since I was 2, right? It's so much more than that. And again, each genre has its own, unique qualities to it. But across the board, it's hard to build a book of business. It takes time. You have to give yourself that time. My career was flat until finally all the work that I was doing paid off. And, that's a whole other conversation about how you run your business, right? Because it's not just, for me to be in here and to be voicing projects is one thing, but how you develop your business, how you maintain your business, how you stay in touch with people, it's critical, because otherwise you're a flash in the pan, right? We're one of 100, we're one of 1,000, there's somebody else who's knocking on their door. And, top of mind is really important. So one of the balances that's hard to find is, how do you stay in front of people without being annoying, right? So that's another question.
We're really running, we're actually kind of out of time. I am happy to stay as long as you're happy to stay, Debbie.
Sure.
If you're low on time, we can try to rush through the rest of the stuff. But thank you so much. You have really enlightened me on medical narration, and it really reiterates that I don't want to say hard words. Just so that's what my takeaway is. I can do all the other stuff, but all the hard words, I will leave that to you people with a smart mouth.
I'm gonna put in the chat room the links to some pronunciation sites.
Okay. Do you want to take a little break and have somebody say some of those fun words? Would you like to do that?
Yes.
Have a
yes.
volunteer.
Awesome.
Kim Newlove is saying, hey, pick me. I want to say hard words.
Okay, cool. Let me share.
And thank you guys all for asking such wonderful questions. These are very, very good questions that I think we all need some interest to.
By the way, I'm happy to have consultations with people. I just set up Calendly earlier today. I hope I set it up right. I'll put that link in here also, so that you can have a 30-minute free, let's just talk and see if this makes sense for you, kind of conversation.
Wow,
So
that is huge, you guys. But give her space and grace, because she's a busy lady. So if all of you email her today, she may not have the time.
Okay, so I just put the Calendly in. I hope it showed up. Did
Sure.
that go there?
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
Perfect.
And then what else did I want to put over there? Oh, I had some fun other words, but let's share. Oop.
Did you put the pronunciation resources in the chat too?
You know what? I was going to. I couldn't copy it off the PDF, so it's right here. I'm going to put this here right now. If you guys want to take a screenshot of it, or because I don't. So I'm sharing my screen, so I can't put this into the chat, but I have it here, and I can once I stop sharing my screen. Did everybody get it?
Yep.
Okay, and I took a picture of it, so after we do some of this, I can put it back into the into the chat window. And I would be very interested in hearing what the other questions are. Obviously, not now because we're running out of time, but to potentially answer them at some later point. So I am very curious to hear what all of you have been saying and thinking on the sidelines. So who wants to have at it?
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Kim.
Do I need to start from the top or can I just pick and choose?
Pick and choose.
All right, number 4 and number 5, ankylosing spondylitis, sphygmomanometer. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah. Knock them out of the park.
Number 7, blepharoconjunctivitis. Number 8, staphylococcus. Number 9, I am going to have to read that. I pass. All right, let's try something else.
Well, I broke it down for you, right?
Oh, I see.
So
Pneumo ultra microscopic silicovolcanoconinosis. Oi. I don't think I quite
pneumono
hear it.
ultramicroscopic volcanoconiosis, I think. Coniosis, right. It's been a while since I've done it too. So what I did here, and this just shows you a little bit about my my thought process. So you have the word here, and then you check the dictionary, and they show you the how it's broken down in its syllables, and then there's also the IPA spelling of it. But what I do, I wish I knew the IPA, is I do my own, how does it sound to me? So the Borber igmus, and I put in caps whichever syllable is supposed to be emphasized. So that's what I did here. And, you can see it on number 3 also, where I did my, uppercasing of the syllables that needed to be, hit.
So this is really interesting, but when it's part of a sentence, it's so hard because you almost have to go over it over and over again. So you have to say, this is nephropathy. This, but it's part of 5 or 6 extra letters rather than what's up there. It's hard. You have to
absolutely.
Medical narration. It's almost like double the work. Seriously.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I keep referencing this project that I did, but there were so many drug names all strung together that my eyes were kind of turning in the back of my head. But absolutely, that's where it has to sound like you say this all the time. You can't be going along in your narration and then you see the word and you're like, you kind of, take this mini pause and and then you jump over the word. I mean, you say it, but that's sort of the feeling. It's like, okay, I'm here and now I have to do it. And I can tell when I listen to myself, I mean, both in the recording and not, that that there's a stop there, that it's not fluid, right? So that's where the rehearsal is super important. And I take pride in the fact that when I, have a session, I've done my work beforehand so that the session's going to go really quickly as far as I'm concerned. And oftentimes I'll hear, wow, that was so easy, gee, that went so fast. And that's because I did my homework. And why should they have to be sitting, listening to me struggle or go over, or no, they're hiring me because I'm a pro, because I know what's expected of me and I'm going to deliver.
Livia wants to give some of these words a try. So go
Go right
and unmute
ahead.
yourself.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm trying to also put my kid to bed. But
Hey, that's okay.
okay, so let me see, okay. So I wanted to try the first couple of ones that Kim didn't read. Sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia. Borborygmus. Choledocholiasis, yeah, okay, that's two times. Choledocholiasis. Ankylosing, ankylosing spondylitis.
There you go. Well, I love that first one, sphenopalatine ganglioneuralgia, because that's two very fancy words for a very unfancy phenomenon, getting an ice cream headache.
I love it.
So
try.
I'm gonna just take a screenshot of this too, and then I can stop sharing my screen so I can put that into the chat room and see you guys. So screenshot.
Excellent. Okay, Sarah, do you have any more questions that you've seen run by? Let's see. Danya, having a medical background enhances your performance. Was that a question?
I would say that's true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
With medical backgrounds. I mean, because we have a pharmacist in the room. I know we have nurses in the room.
It's a huge advantage in a variety of ways. One, because you're already familiar with some of the lingo and the language and that whole universe. Two, you have an angle for marketing yourself that makes you truly unique. I don't have that background. I'm a daughter of a scientist, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, and so I don't understand all the science behind the projects that I'm being given, but I try to. I need to understand the story enough. And this is something that's interesting too. A lot of times there'll be a phrase like downward signaling cascade. That's something that you hear an awful lot. And downward signaling cascade is like, okay, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So finally I asked, somebody I was working with, and he said, it depends. It could be good or bad. And I was like, oh, okay, so that makes sense. It's almost like it's all downhill from here. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It kind of depends on the context. So you really do need to ask the question. And at some other point, we can get into, how to help your clients help you with scripts so that you can know what it is that they know, which is they know it inside and out. They know what's important. They know what they want to billboard. They know where in the text, in the science, in the story, there's novel information. I mean, you can figure some of this stuff out, but you're partners, right? And the more interest you show in them and the script and wanting to understand the story, the happier they're going to be, right? The more grateful they're going to be because it shows that you're all in.
So Debbie, there's a question about rates-wise. Obviously, it becomes about how much is it typically per word, or do you give an idea of range of rates of medical narration? Sorry.
Well, of course, it depends on the usage, right? And, you know, assuming it's non-broadcast, I tend to price things at, you know, 500 words or less. So whether it's a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And you also kind of have to have a sense if, you know, of your client's budget, right? You ideally want to try and find out all of this information. Typically what I say is that it's $1,000 for scripts that are 500 words or less. Now, I also have a special rate that I give to universities when I'm doing narrations for their students. And, you know, nothing is, you know, I don't like turning work away like anybody else, but, you know, it's not hard and fast, but that's the framework that I start from. And if I feel like it's an easy conversation to have, that's what I say.
Do you use the Global Voice Acting Academy rate guide at all?
I do. I'm there a lot, but more often than not, I'm there to hyperlink to show somebody else, like, you know, what the reality is. I don't use it for myself for my narration stuff. It's more like, you know, in the area of, okay, is it streaming? Is it paid? Is it unpaid? Is it, you know, all those, you know, little tentacles of different platforms that can have an impact on the pricing. So yeah, I use it. As I say, I'm there quite a bit, but not for this. Not for this.
Okay, guys.
And
Just really quick question: if you didn't know that Debbie was from New York City, would you know that Debbie was from New York City? No, curious, really. Somebody asked about regional accents, and so how does that play in? Because I know you can be a New Yorker if you need to.
I could totally be a New Yorker. And by the way, I wasn't born in New York. I was born in Chicago. And I can't do a Chicago accent. It's funny. I can speak English with an Italian accent. I can speak Spanish, but I can't speak English with a Spanish accent. I can speak English with a British accent, but I can't get that Australian accent. I can do a Southern, I can do Texan, I can do Russian. But accents are, you know, I think where the accent comes into play is where, you know, content is maybe being localized. Again, who's the audience? Who do they want to hear from? Typically, those decisions are already being made, and as they filter down, you know, they're finding you, or they're finding me, or whomever, right, has the voice that's going to speak to that audience and also embody the person who is telling the story, right?
It's so funny. We have Terrell Kennett said she's polished and elegant, and so many as so many New Yorkers are.
Well, thank you. But again, I'm from Chicago, but I have been in New York for in August it will be 40 years, which is shocking to me to say, but it's true. I came in 1980. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to know how many of you have been in the business under a year or consider yourselves real new. Okay, nobody.
Yeah. Hold up your hands, but keep them up so I can scroll so we can see the people that have their cameras on anyway.
So okay. This is a year and under. Okay.
Yep, year and under.
And then let's see who has 2 years.
Okay.
3 years. Uh-huh. Who's been doing this for over 5 years? Uh-huh.
10?
Uh-huh. 10 years? Cool.
15? Shall we go higher? Their whole lives?
How many of you have Source Connect now? I mean, not Source Connect now, but Source Connect. How many of you have used it for less than a year?
I have Source Connect since 2017.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right, right. But I'm curious to know, like, you know, I imagine
Yes.
so many people have bought it. I know so many people have bought it just since COVID.
If you want to connect with anybody with Source Connect, just reach out to the VO community. We're happy to help you. If you just installed it, happy to help. So just
Right.
reach out, please.
Right. I'm going to come up with I like the acronym BC, like before COVID and then after COVID, right? So.
Kim has a question. She's interested in doing research and prep work for other medical voiceovers when she's
Really?
not doing her own projects. I don't know, Kim, do you want to unmute and just kind of elaborate just a little bit on what you're looking to do to help people?
Sure, I've never thrown this out before, but I don't see why not. I've been a pharmacist for 19 years. I live in Ohio, and I know how to pronounce drug names and do research for drug names, medical terminology, etc. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I wouldn't be doing it for free, though.
As you
I
should
just wanted
not
to
be
throw that
doing
out
it for
there.
free. No, it's a great service that you would offer. And so, Debbie, how could you put that to work? I mean, you are already pretty well versed in this, but if you're struggling with something, how could you use Kim's services to help you?
Well,
What I was asking is if there's a market for that.
yeah, I mean, I think there is. Basically, what, you know, what I think you're saying is that you would be willing to do the market research. You'd be willing to go out and try and find the companies and find the names of people. You're already familiar with some of the job titles.
She's shaking her head. I think she wants to do
Sorry,
no?
no.
research on
Oh.
actually how to do the pronunciations and
Pronunciations and terminology.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. So maybe you could teach a class, or you could offer, you know, a 15-minute session or something. Like if you get stumped, I know some coaches will let you like call them for for a quickie, because you need some help, like, you know, working on on a commercial audition or something like that. So that would be a way. You know, if you put together a little, I don't know, we can talk about that some more. I've had a lot of interest in my teaching, so I've been thinking about putting together a course, and that's part of my interest in finding out what other questions you folks have to see if, you know, if I can serve the community in that way. And I could
Absolutely. I
see
mean, look at
having
how
you,
many-
Kim, be a guest speaker, right?
Well, look how many people are here. I think this is absolutely something that people are truly interested in. And it's just a matter of how do we take that first step? Especially folks that are already well versed in voiceover. They've had their training, they have their demos, they have their website, all their ducks are all lined up. So, you know, what you're offering here is invaluable. And I think if you put together a webinar that lots of people could join in, like this one, that you really dig a little bit deeper, and then you could do one-on-one things, I think it'd be super valuable. Raise your hand if you think, you know, especially if you're super interested in running down this road. You know, my favorite saying is running with scissors. Sometimes I give you full permission to run with scissors, huh, Amy? Other times I ask you to go to a professional before you run with scissors. So Debbie would be that professional, and she could help you figure out, you know, how not to hurt yourself. Raise your hand if you would be interested in something like that. See, Debbie?
Okay.
People already love it.
Cool. Well, that's exciting. You know, I love this work, and there's plenty of it to go around and to share. And, you know, it's a matter of also, you know, sort of fundamentally, again, it's like, how do you find clients? This is where we have to be creative in other ways, right? We have to put on a different hat. We have to get out of the booth and go about searching for, you know, for people to connect with and build relationships with. So, you know, sometimes you get hired just overnight because you audition for something on a P2P or whatever, but really having relationships so that you could be a trusted advisor, so that you're the one who, when somebody says, oh, we need a medical voice, oh, contact Debbie, you know, and also I like to let my clients know that I know I'm not the right voice for everything, but I can help them find the right voice because I have a massive network of fantastic talent. And, you know, it's again, getting back to that, being a problem solver. So.
You've answered a ton of questions. Now, Amy missed some one of the slides, of one of the photo slides, and she's wondering if you wouldn't mind just putting your presentation back up for a minute and maybe just running through them and letting people, you know, jot a few notes down. You don't have to linger on any of them. Would you mind doing that?
I tried to put something into the chat. I took a screenshot.
Oh, okay.
The slide that I missed had a drawing. It had like circles, and it was a drawing of
sure.
lines that kind of went like this. I missed that slide. I was going up and down the steps at the time.
Yeah, the atomic opportunities. Okay, so let me just share my screen again. That one?
Is that it, Amy? Okay, yep. And Maria said to Kim that you could record a technical term ebook and pitch it to several teaching facilities, which is the truth. Let's see.
Cool.
Let's see. This is a great late night chat. Thank you guys. I do. Debbie, you have been ridiculous amounts of information tonight for so many people. So I super appreciate your time and the effort that you put into that presentation. Girl, that's a good presentation.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Except for somebody wanted to know where number 6 was. On one of your slides, it goes from 5 to 7. So we thought you were keeping a secret.
Thank you for noticing that. I'll have to check that out. I was having some, you know, I am not good at graphic stuff, you know. Not good at all. I hire other people, or luckily I'm, you know, quarantining with my 2 adult daughters. So one of them, you know, usually helps me. So clearly I missed something, but I always appreciate being told where there's a mistake, because I think
one of your words says frugs instead of drugs.
Oh, really?
Someone looked up the meaning of frug.
You know,
I'd have to go way back in the chat to look that up, but.
Frogs are, you know, they're frogs on drugs, basically. And I noticed when I said US and Europe, and it says us. So I have a couple of things to go back. I have some pickups to do.
It was beautiful. I loved it. Yes, Sarah. Unmute yourself. No? She's just talking to herself. She's had too many glasses of wine tonight.
I'm ready for mine now.
Hey, I'm all for, you know, I decided just this morning, actually, that we need to have a late night secrets cocktail party to where we actually all get dressed up and we can come. You can bring your spouses if you want to. And then we can just have a mixology class. So if you have a super awesome drink, you can, you know, demonstrate how you make it, and then you could drink it. Any interest in that? Because I will definitely organize that if you guys are. All right, cool. I'll organize it. And then I want to see you in your sparkliest dress and earrings.
Thank you so much, Debbie. You're so sweet.
Thank you. This was great. I appreciate all of you all your interest and your questions, and let's continue the dialogue.
What is the best way for them to contact you? Could you put your Calendly link back up there again? So in case no one got it.
Yep.
Because Calendly is a beautiful thing, because then you're in control and you don't have to send a million emails back and forth. Will this time work for you? No, it won't. It's just a big waste of time. It's perfect. And me, I know you guys, a lot of you know me, but I do some voiceover coaching, especially for newbies. Medical narration is not my jam, by the way. So I'm saying I can help you with the general commercial e-learning, corporate, business to business type of things. But when you need medical narration, you need to go to somebody, you know, like Debbie, or somebody that walks the walk and talks the talk, truthfully. I don't live in that world, so I don't teach that world, right? One other question I thought of, Debbie, about medical terminology and taking a medical terminology course. How valuable would that be?
Probably very, you know, studying your Latin too, very much so, you know, breaking down the words. But but still, I don't trust myself just to do it on the fly. Um, I wanna check and double check. So, but you know, I wish I had taken Latin, because if I had taken Latin, I think that would help me across the board with all language. So any training you get, it's always going to make you better. It may not be relevant today, but tomorrow or the next day, my time on Wall Street as a stockbroker, did I ever think that that was going to help me how many years later? 15, 20 years later? But that's in my past, aside from, you know, all the rejections that I got as an actress when I was 20 years old, I got lots of rejections when I was trying to build a business on Wall Street. Invest with you? Hell no, click, right? But I had to learn how to build that business. And that was the most valuable experience that I had in my past that's helped me to be successful today. So, you know, there's no reason to not learn something, you know, unless it's painful. I don't know.
Yeah, and I really think it's important to get your base built solidly before you jump into the bucket, you know?
Yes.
Because like you said, the lady could see right through you. That is the worst feeling on the planet. When you know they're like, oh, aren't you cute? Let's call somebody knows what they're talking about. It's the worst. Because I think we've all been in that chair feeling that little uncomfortableness of,
Yeah.
do I
Right.
really
You
know?
know, listen, we're all human. We're all learning. We're all on a journey. And you know, I think now more than ever, not to say a phrase that we're all saying in all these spots,
In
people
these
are
difficult times, is that what
in
you're
these
trying to
difficult
say?
times. Yeah. Now more than ever, I think people are empathic. It's a little bit like after 9/11, you know, and there's more. People have slowed down. The world has slowed down, right? And so there's more room for conversation. There's more room for connecting with people. And so I would encourage you, for those of you who already have clients, for those of you who, you know, have been in touch with some people, get back in touch with them. And you know, these are opportunities to strengthen the ties, and that's what you want to do, because then, you know, your clients go from clients to being friends because you really like them, and it's not a matter of, oh, who should I think of for this? It's you're just part of their world. No, to quote Ariel, right? Disney.
Somebody asked, how do you pronounce the words ending in AE?
Alumni, which words?
Do you guys want to slap some words in there? And she can know what you're talking about. And Greg said it's a relief to know that people at your level actually are rechecking, researching, and making sure everything is perfect. Because that's why you are at the top of your game, because you do the right things.
Yeah, you know that saying, you know what you know what you don't know,
You
but
don't
you
know
don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
right? Um, you know, yeah, of course, of course you know, I think inherent is in that is the notion that I'm still learning and growing. And I like to be as good as I possibly can be. And so that when I get in front of a group like you or a client, that I've done my homework and that I know what the options are anyhow. And even if it's, you know, I found this word and a couple of different ways of saying it, you know, what's your take on it? You know, these things aren't hard and fast, right? People just want to know that you're trying your best, right? And you can usually tell when somebody is trying their best or when they're just trying to kind of slide by, right? You know, when you've been on the other end of that, you can see it pretty clearly. So just switch it around and be the best that you can be. Be excellent to everyone, especially yourselves.
That's a good tip right there. Remember to be nice to yourselves, guys. How many, I don't know if you follow me on social media, but a lot of my posts are all about be kind to yourself. Give yourself a break. Stop your negative talking, because you're just standing in your way holding a stop sign. Every time you walk out of your studio and say, oh, geez, why do I even do this for a living? I suck. That's soaking into your soul, people. Mary, you stop your laughing. Because I'm constantly harping at all my students saying, self-confidence. If you're not confident, I'm not going to believe anything that you say. And you can't be confident if you're beating yourself up. If you need somebody to beat you up, call your coach. They will lovingly beat you up in the kindest way. But please, be kind to yourselves, guys. Okay, so somebody said vertebrae, scapula. So say vertebrae
Algae.
is AE. The scapula is AE, and there was another one earlier.
Algae.
VITAE. Vitae. Curriculum vitae, is that how you say that?
Oh, curriculum. Yeah, I think it's vitae. See, I mean, I would check. It takes you 2 seconds, and then I know.
So there's not a hard and fast AE.
You know what? If there is, I don't know it. And, I wish I did. There are people who know, the phonetic alphabet inside and out, the International Phonetic Alphabet. I bought the book years ago. It's this big. I took it on one trip with me thinking, okay, I'll make my way through. Tough stuff. But that's a mountain I would like to climb. Whether or not I do it is another matter, but it would be an invaluable tool, really invaluable. But anyhow.
Well, we are late. You guys, it's probably way past your bedtime. It is, well, it's not my bed. I'm in mountain time, so I'm way 2 hours earlier than you. So it's almost ice cream time at my house. It's 8:38. As I just throw my phone on the floor. But thank you guys all so much for coming. And Debbie, you are fantastico. And I
thank you, everybody. Thank
all the
you.
effort that you put into
Nellie, Jennifer, Tammy, Richard, hey, Jim, Amber, Catherine, Kim, Martin, Sarah, Matt, Patricia, Dr. Mary, didn't hear from you, Ron, hey Ron, Jeffrey, Ann, Danya, Vivi, you stuck it out, Liza, Jay, Joan, Jolene, Bruce, Tina, Greg, Lawrence, Zeb, Abby, everybody here, and the list goes on and on.
By the way,
Beautiful
Debbie,
faces.
I want to tell you something.
Yeah.
This was the most packed room I have ever had.
Oh,
this room was full tonight.
Oh,
full.
that's wonderful.
So that should do your heart good, because people obviously have some serious respect for you.
Oh, well, thank you. And again, I'm happy to connect with you guys individually and to see how I can be of help to you in your careers, whether it's specifically around medical narration or if it's something even more kind of fundamental, the 360 of building your business so that, it can support you.
See, there's lots of really good people in this industry, guys. You just gotta seek out the right ones. Like Debbie,
Cool.
Giver. Okay, so next month, I want to see all your beautiful faces here again. Even more faces, turn on your webcams. I'd love all of you to have your web cameras on, because we want to see you. It's just like the real world and clients. They want to get to know you as a person and your face and all the beautifulness of all of you. So make sure you're here next month for Larry Hudson. He is going to give you tons of tips and tricks on shortcuts for Audacity, Twisted Wave, and Adobe Audition. He teaches some really fantastic classes. So if you're trying to feel your way through your new audio software, or you're really just not sure if you're new and which one to use is going to serve you over time, VO Heaven, he teaches all kinds of really great classes. So you can take a 3-hour class on Adobe Audition and learn all your keyboard shortcuts and how to, do the spectral view for the sibilants.
I love that.
So he's going to be tons of information next month. So don't miss that. And I do believe that one is going to have a replay link. And then, of course, Dan Friedman the following month. And then who knows who I'll get throughout the summer. Whoever I can get to.
More great people.
Yeah.
because like attracts like. Thank you so much.
Debbie, thank you so much. And all of you, raise your hand if this has opened your eyes and you are now thinking maybe medical narration might be something you can. Look, more hands are going up than at the beginning of the session.
Cool. Well, I hope I demystified it a little bit. Good. Martin's shaking his head. That's cool, right? You know, it's like anything else, right? You just have to, a little bit at a time, right? You can't bite the whole thing. You have to just, you know, go at it slowly. So, you know, be patient and have perseverance.
I asked my grandson the other day, how do you eat an elephant? He was so perplexed. First of all, it's like, why would you want to eat an elephant? I said, that's not the point. It's a whole one bite at a time. This is a journey. I know it's really difficult to know that you really want to do this for a living. And I really want this for you too. I really want this for all of you. I want you to be successful. A lot of you are already hella successful and I'm proud of that. But just know, this is a 20-year journey. I'm not saying you can't be successful and it's not going to take you 20 years. You can be successful sooner than that, but you have to work at it and you have to learn and you have to take free webinars like this. There's tons of free webinars that I'm seeing posted everywhere. Take advantage of every single one of them that you possibly can, because people are giving their time. I've never been in an industry that gives more to each other. Never. And I've been in a few different industries. So I just really appreciate this kumbaya moment that we get to have once a month. So I like to hold out your hands. Anyway, I guess you all need to go to bed because I could talk to you forever because I've been quarantined for 2 months. As well as all you have too as well. So be safe, stay super
Thank you,
healthy,
everybody.
and disinfect everything in your lives. And look at everybody's like, thanking you so much, Debbie.
Good night. Thank you.
I love you all. I'll see you next
Bye.
month.
I'm
Take
looking
good care of
forward to hearing all of your voices.
Bye.
Good night.
See ya.
Bye.